Greeks. Ephesus was, of course, a pagan city. They were polytheistic, but their favorite goddess, like their number one main squeeze goddess, was Artemis, or Diana, depending if you want the Greek or the Latin. Same goddess made up, obviously. But they were also really into the occult. We studied this last week. They would wear these little amulets around their neck that were kind of like good luck charms, but they were connected with the spirits. They would have their scrolls with their incantations that they kind of, this is important for later, by the way. They would rely on these incantations, these amulets to work with the spirits to make sure the bad ones stayed away and what they thought were the good ones. There were no good ones, obviously. We're talking demons here. They're all bad, but in their minds, they had good spirits and bad spirits and more powerful spirits and less powerful spirits. And so they were always working it with these spirits through these different means of doing it. So they were really involved in the occult, and it's going to be a problem later on.
Okay. Acts chapter 19, verse 18. Also, many of those who were now believers came confessing and divulging their practices. And a number of those who had practiced magic arts brought their books together and burned them in sight of all. And they counted the value of them and found it came to 50,000 pieces of silver. So the word of the Lord continued to increase and prevail mightily. The background on Ephesus being the city hugely into the occult, into magic. And then you see this here, it says they're confessing and divulging their practices. And you go, okay, what practices are those? And then a number of those who practiced magic arts brought their books together. Last week, we told you about these little scrolls that they would have with these incantations and spells and curses and words that they were highly valuable, that they used. This was a huge thing in Ephesus, that they would create these little amulets and like stash it away in people's houses to put curses on them. And this was such a huge piece of who these people are, and very much where they're putting their faith and their trust in. It's like they're, I don't even know a right way to describe it, but like kind of a get out of jail free card. Like this is their safety net.
It was like insurance for them.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
I don't know that all of these people were actually involved with those after they came to Christ. I think for some of them,
this is also a good statement.
They just had them. They just kept them. It was kind of like, if the Jesus thing doesn't work out, I've got these to fall back on. Yeah. And that's what we were saying, like their insurance policy. It was their safety net. To get rid of these meant I have no safety net. I have no plan B. It's all on Jesus. All my eggs in one basket, to put it in the vernacular, that I'm going all out for Christ. And so I think, just to kind of, tag on to what Noelle just said there. So some of us, so maybe we don't necessarily read our horoscope every day, but it's kind of nice to know that if I have a big decision to make, maybe I just consult it really quick, because it's just fun. No, it is not just fun. That's not something that we should ever be involved in, because that is antithetical to everything the Bible teaches, and it's antithetical to God himself. You put all your eggs in one basket, and that is God himself. He's the one you consult. He is the one you depend on. He is the one that you trust, and he will take you through it. So that's where these people had come. Also, doing this, this is a public display of a huge break with culture. These people put it on the line big time. We can just not consult our horoscope, but that's not the same thing as standing out in the public square, announcing it to the whole world.
With this bonfire in front of you. Yeah. Woo!
Yeah.
And there's huge financial implications for them as well that would have been on display here. It's not totally clear exactly how much money this is, and he gives us the amount in silver. It's anywhere from between $10,000 to $50,000 in modern money, and that is so much money for these people. So you can see God's spirit is really moving here. This is a very big deal. Very, very exciting.
So Robin asked a while ago, and thank you, Robin, for reposting so we wouldn't forget, because I would have. What is the difference between worshiping pagan idols and statues, like what we've been talking about, versus worshiping Christian idols and statues? Exodus 24 says, "You shall not make for yourself an idol or any likeness, what is in heaven above, or in earth beneath, or in the water under the earth." So what she's asking is, what's the difference between what we're reading about in Ephesus here with these little idols of Diana, and what we might see today, even flanking a church where there are statues and people pray to these, worship these, and she's asking, what is the difference? Noelle, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that one is a thinly veiled worship of Satan, and the other is a very carefully crafted and obscured worship of Satan. But at their base, they are both worshiping Satan. That is really, really scary. You see a lot of, quote unquote Christian religions today in the world that very highly prioritize these physical objects that hold some innate power. We even talked about this last week, where you've got these guys on TV praying over this handkerchief, and if you just send in your $29.95, they'll send you this handkerchief, and this handkerchief is going to heal you. That is also this sort of idolatry and worship of these physical things. We serve a living God. The reason that you would worship and a physical thing is if your God is dead, and the only way that you could potentially connect with that dead God is through some physical object. We don't need that, because our God is living. He is present. He's here with us today. And so what Satan tries to do is he tries to, in our minds, make our God so dead and so distant as Christians that we think that we need beads, or we need a statue, or we need a handkerchief in order to connect with that God. And in doing so, we're not connecting with our living God. We're connecting with something so far less and downright evil. So the simple answer, Robin, to your question, what's the difference between worshiping pagan idols and statues versus worshiping Christian statues and idols? There's no difference, except in how expertly Satan has veiled idolatry and idol worship. I know that we hit a lot of things tonight that very likely have some of you out there kind of reeling right now. And we hit the horoscopes, we hit astrology, we hit idols. It's very likely there are some of you out there who go, I love Jesus, but I fall into one of these categories. I just want you to know there is huge grace for you. We don't say this to you in condemnation. We say this to you because we want you to live in the full freedom and glory of Jesus Christ. And you can't do that when you're partially or entirely beholden to these things of Satan.